Everett, partner with DPZ Partners, and I'm tasked with the university neighborhoods, Silver Hill, University Heights, and University of New Mexico. So it's the intersection between these neighborhoods and the university along Central. So the area in general, this is Central here. University of New Mexico is here. We have University Heights and Silver Hill, and I'm really looking in this area and finding ways to both better stitch together the university and the neighborhoods with each other, and looking at the commercial areas. There's a commercial district here on Harvard, potentially along Yale, and how this becomes a really strong neighborhood center for the neighbors, and the potential for another Main Street segment over here across University in this location. This diagram shows some priority pedestrian and bicycle connections. North-south is really important to reestablish throughout the area. There are some existing east-west connections, such as Silver, which currently has a bicycle boulevard, but we don't really have the fabric going north and south, and also connecting from South Campus of University of New Mexico to Central Campus. And there's places where we want to make sure, these red boxes for instance, we want to make sure that pedestrians and bicycles can cross streets safely. And currently there may be some issues. We know that there's a lot of students that are living down here, faculty, there's people that are visiting the presentation halls and lectures and other events at the university, and so that movement between the two is very important. So that's one of the main focuses, and then finding out a lot more from the neighbors what they want to see in that neighborhood change. So they're historically, and they've been sort of at this since the late 70s, promoting the right sort of change, and over time a lot of students have moved into the neighborhood, and there's been a lot more renters, and that's caused some problems. There's been more student housing developed on campus, and that relationship starting to change. The university is interested in developing more housing on campus. We're looking at some sites along the edge as a means to stitch the neighborhood together, and then sort of looking back here and saying, well, what needs to be fixed in University Heights to help out stabilizing this neighborhood in this seam of Yale, and how between Silver Hill and University Heights that comes together, and sort of the same situation in Silver Hill, which has an active historic district. So we spend a lot of time actually learning, and it's been a pretty long learning process because the place is complex. This diagram we started in a few other districts as well to identify what are the most important buildings in the community, both historically active businesses, historic districts. So in blue, this area, for instance, is the Silver Hill Historic District, which has a very strong historic character of homes and is very active. We've also identified within, say, this is the commercial district between Yale, Harvard, and Cornell. So we've identified some historic buildings, some new buildings that have recently been constructed. In blue, some properties that could be redeveloped, but they may not be redeveloped, but they may at some point change to contribute to this district. In yellow, and then in red are really open surface parking lots and maybe some buildings that aren't particularly contributing at the moment that are targets for redevelopment. And through this we've really found that while Harvard currently is active, that Yale has a lot of potential as the ART comes through and we densify with housing at the northern end of the neighborhood, that this becomes a much stronger Main Street, and we can connect to Harvard and really make a district. We have some issues over on Cornell because of the existing substation and the post office, which really you don't have a reciprocal relationship with retail on both sides of the street, which is interesting. It's been brought up that that's the same case along Central here, because the university isn't active 24/7 on this edge, so retail doesn't do as well here. So we're really looking at perpendicular main streets. We're also looking with these brown lines are some important connections. The university has indicated that they have an interest in connecting by bike on Buena Vista, so we have to look at really this intersection of Central and how you can get as a pedestrian and cyclist into campus well. They're also looking at relocating an entrance signal here for the university. So our questions then are, how do we prioritize the crossing? How does this act as an entrance? Currently, this is all parking lots. So as we think about the redevelopment of the edges, how does that entry work? And then what is the character of Princeton, which is where that connection would come through. And then more recently, there were brought up some additional north-south connections for bikes. So we began to look at some specific sites and redevelopment in this area. So this is the eastern edge of campus. University is here. Here's central. We looked at some potential student housing with structured parking. The university knows that they need to provide more parking on campus, but they want to pull it off of surface lots. At the same time, Nob Hill's Main Street district is directly adjacent, so parking in this location could serve some of the lacking parking in Nob Hill. So this is a really opportune site for development, both for student housing and parking. And then we started looking at some ways that sites that are being underutilized right now across the street might work together to sort of share parking, so that the burden goes on one site where you could fit structured parking, but other sites adjacent would then be freed from that parking burden. So we're looking at infill sites in that sort of configuration. Another thing that's really important to the process is limiting where retail lies, and we don't necessarily think that retail is strong on this portion of Central. It might pick back up in the corner, but the Main Street is really over here where we have it existing on Harvard and on Yale. Now in this location, because vehicular traffic is really moving to the new entrance potentially on campus, we're looking at, well, what happens now with this entrance when it becomes a very strong pedestrian entrance and cyclist entrance, but not so much a vehicular entrance. So we can recapture space, make some plazas and greens, and potentially this is a bookstore with a cafe, but the back of house here, this is loading docks and garbage. And we thought we could line that, move the cafe to this edge potentially, and reimagine Yale Park, which is a historic park, but it's had problems over the years. At the same time, the university's building a new building where the existing reservoir is located. So we see this as a great place for a new entrance to campus and a way to reimagine the park, and that connects directly across to the neighborhood center on Harvard and Yale. We're thinking about some cross connections between the two streets so that we have a greater pedestrian density to support the retail district, and at specific sites and what sort of redevelopment could infill them. We'll be looking soon at the future of Yale to a little further south, analyzing a dangerous intersection here, which was previously identified in the shopping center. At the west side of campus, there's two parcels across here that the university owns, and they've suggested that they are interested in developing some parking, potentially some retail, and housing. So this looks at how that might be configured and how we might reimagine the entry green, which is beloved on campus here, but is not really well connected. So we'll continue to look at this, what happens if Redondo Drive doesn't cut along the edge, and actually we have a direct relationship between the green and the adjacent buildings. So we're also looking at what the detail of streets are like and how those work for businesses or houses around them. This is a look that we've just started at Harvard. We realize that Harvard gets really wide. So this is the existing street section from Central to Silver, and you see the sidewalk jogs out in two places, at different spots from each other, and in the end, once you get to Central, you have parking, but you basically have 19-foot wide travel lanes, which is totally unheard of. It's a big waste of space. Here, which is interesting, is there's been a small plaza carved out on one private property here. So we started to think about, well, can we capture, at first, what if we capture some space back in the center and allow people to occupy that and move the cars around. We have a little bit of extra space here. We can get some angled parking in order to increase parking on the street. We're working right now on another idea which takes the street and shifts it along the edge here and widens this plaza so it's a much more meaningful space. So we're continuing through those ideas. We're also looking at some other streets, for instance, Buena Vista. It doesn't have a very good condition on the edge, but the inside is fine. It needs some striping in order to define travel lanes and parking, but how might the streetscape look? And we had looked previously at some ideas of accommodating bicycles on Buena Vista because of the desire to connect South Campus to Central Campus. So this is a section that provides a buffer and a bike lane dedicated on the street. And then also there's phase 2 of the rapid transit system that will go up University Drive. The residents had fear of losing their treed medians, so this looks at retaining those medians, getting the bus on streets, still retaining 4 travel lanes. But what we found is that the current travel lanes are too wide. I don't have the other version here, but the current travel lanes are at 12 feet, and when we reduce them to the right size, 11 for buses, 10 for cars, we actually gain enough space to plant trees. And currently, the configuration of the street has sidewalks with cars right next to it driving very fast, and that's unsafe for pedestrians. So this is one way to look at this, and we're going to take another look at having the bus on the outside lane instead in a similar configuration.